Howdy-ho, Andrew here. Welcome to the Onion Buns and welcome to another episode of Tales of Neverwinter Nights. So we last ended off with Maverlyn binding Theodo as a Knight of Loth. And yeah, so we're going to go down into her story. The next 4 stories over the next 2 episodes will be, it will demonstrate how much intrigue functions in Drow society, and not just between Drow and humans, but Drow and Drow, even Drow that are supposed to be trusted Drow. The intrigue never ends, and I got to admit, Maverlyn's done a wonderful job writing on this. So let's get to it. The Night of Justice. Traveling quickly, stopping only long enough to eat, the Yathrin and the Dark Knight soon reached the outskirts of Long Saddle. Reaching the inn, Maverlyn led the way to a large suite of rooms in the back. Theodo glanced around with interest, but kept quiet, seeming to know he should not speak. Taking the cloak off, she turned to him and finally broke the silence they had traveled under. "Guard the door, Theodo. Let no one enter these rooms." She spoke quietly, seating herself at a table nearby. Slowing her breathing and letting her eyes unfocus, Mav went into a light trance. With Theodo standing watch, Maverlyn reached out with her mind, seeking another soul for Loth. Mental fingers lightly touched the thoughts of one she knew long ago. Finding a name in his mind, she sent her mental fingers out further and sought the one named. In a light trance, eyes unfocused, the Yathrin whispered, "Theodo, I believe I have found the one I will turn to Loth, as you did." Knowing she required no answer, the Dark Knight did not respond. Touching lightly with mental fingers, the strong mind she had found radiated with power. Sensing this power, she spoke within his mind. "I hear you are a great leader of your people." Startled at the strange world in his head, the young warrior looked about. Seeing no one nearby, he answered within his mind, "Who are you?" "And yes, I am the leader of the Knights of Justice." An image formed in his mind. A Drow priestess? Did she not know of his hatred for any of that evil temple? The flash of hatred burned outward. Sensing this hatred and seeing the darkness buried deep inside, she smiled. Once more she formed words in his mind. "I have heard of you from another. I seek only to learn why you hate me so much. I do not know you, yet I sense your burning anger." Caught off guard, unable to sense anything but sincerity in her mind, his anger dissipated, replaced by interest. "You are unlike the other Yathrin that I have encountered. What is it you want?" The image smiled in his mind, the mental words seeming to purr. "Perhaps because I see things differently. I appear different. I find you intriguing, male." The image seemed to grow in his mind, the sapphire orbs probing his deepest thoughts. Unexpectedly drawn to her, his natural barriers started to drop away. Both sinking deeper into trance, the mind link became stronger, drawing them into a misty landscape where only the two of them stood. When Mav's breathing slowed and the trance deepened, a look of concern flashed across Theodo's face. There was nothing he could do, so he stood watch over her still form and prayed to Lot that she knew what she was doing. Nothing but misty grayness surrounded the two. The figures of the Drow priestess moved closer to the night. A seductive smile curved her lips, and her eyes glowed softly with promise of delight. Reaching up with one slender hand, she caressed the young man's cheek and brushed her fingers over his lips. "You are very attractive, leader of the Knights of Justice," she whispered. His stern visage softened for a moment, and he smiled at Maverlyn. "The name is Bernard, milady." Her breath caught in her throat at the intensity of his gaze. Such power in one so young, she thought. Bernard gently took her hands in his, placed them back to her sides and released them. "And you are a vision of beauty, Yathrin," he replied. "What is your name?" "I am Maverlyn, mistress of Relenthar," she answered with a sultry laugh. Glancing at him through her lashes, she studied his features serendipitously. He in turn studied her, but with open admiration in his eyes. "You're very different from the other Drow I have met. Tell me, are you happy with your life?" Startled at the question, Her past flashed through her mind as she tried to understand what he meant. Bernard noticed the hesitation and spoke almost tenderly. I can see you have doubts. Perhaps there is some good in you. Let me help you return to the light, Maverlyn. His words seemed to go through her like an electric shock. The allure of the magnetism pulled at something she thought dead and buried long ago. Turning away from this all too charismatic male, she finally replied, I belong fully to Loth, Bernard. There is no spark of goodness in my soul. Do not be so well as to think that. This time it was the night that moved closer. Stepping up behind Mauve, he turned her around to face him. With a searching look, he took her. Nay, I can sense that a spark still burns deep within you. Join me. Let me show you the way of true freedom. He waved his hands and an exquisite rose appeared. For you, he said simply. Mesmerized by his voice, her eyes deep pools of sapphire, she felt herself tempted. As she accepted the delicate flower, her dedication seemed to waver. Sensing something in her eyes, Bernard called out to his god and tried to expel the darkness from Mauve's soul. Binding light surrounded her body. Burning needles of pain seared her flesh as the light grew brighter. In anguish, she withered with the pain, a mental scream piercing Bernard's mind. No! Immediately, a cloud of darkness enveloped her, snuffing out the light. When it dissipated, the knight found himself alone in the grey mist. Theodo found himself growing tired as the day passed, slowly with no sign of Maverlyn coming out of the trance. In spite of this, he stayed vigilant, knowing what his punishment entailed if he fell asleep. A low moan alerted him that her mental journey neared its end. As he turned towards her, he saw her face contorted with pain and her eyes were deep within an inner struggle. Quickly he reached towards her and as her body slumped into a faint. Catching Mauve in his arms, he lifted her with ease and carried her to the bed, gently laying her upon it. His eyes scanned the room looking for something to help him. Spying a wash basin, Theodo dipped a washcloth into the cool water and carefully placed it on her brow. Minutes later, Mauve's eyes began to flutter. Then they flew open with a startled look in them. A fleeting look of remembering pain flashed across her face. Then her eyes began to glow with anger. He tried to convert me, she exclaimed with some heat. The Walla Rivel cast some spell that tried to turn me to the light. Mauve's voice pulsed with anger and revulsion. I cannot believe I was almost tempted. Theodo gave her an inquiring look as she abruptly sat up and swung her legs off the bed. Standing, she began to pace, the fury evident in every part of her body. The dark night remained diplomatically quiet while she stormed about the room. A knock at the door broke the flood of recriminations. Enter, the infuriated Drowness shouted. A servant fearfully opened the door and entered with a sealed scroll clutched in his hand. Quickly he knelt before Mauve, lowering his eyes and holding a scroll bearing the Rilatar seal. Before she could take the scroll from the servant, a blinding stab of pain entered her mind as Bernard reached out with a mental touch. Are you all right? Came the concerned thought. With all the anger she could muster through the pain, she sent a mental reply. Leave me alone. He could see her image, the pain and fury evident on her face. What is wrong? He asked. I have been punished for your temptation. Your mental touch causes me pain. Leave me alone. Once again, Theodo reached the mistress in time to catch her before she hit the ground. The servant looked on with wide, frightened eyes, still holding the scroll. The dark night again placed her on the bed. He turned to the fearful male. Frowning, knowing the servant may speak of things he shouldn't, Theo advanced on the slave and drawing his sword, he spoke. It is too bad you were here to witness this. Before the servant could scramble away, his head was rolling across the floor. As blood pumped out of the severed body, Theodo neatly grabbed the message before the red fluid could ruin it. And that's where we're going to stop for today on just that one story, because there was a lot to take in on that one story. I found it very interesting. I'm a big fantasy reader, or I used to be anyway, before my eyes started to go. And one of my favorite fantasy role-playing games on the computer was Dragon Age Origins. The original game, Origins, was a masterpiece of storytelling. The follow-up games don't even come close to comparing to that original game. And in that original game, they had the Veil. And what I just read by Maverlyn is the Veil. But what she wrote this, I'd have to look up the dates, but I'm going to say it easily 15 to 17 years before Dragon Age. So she wasn't copying what she read from Dragon Age and BioWare. She actually wrote this. Like, that was a fantastic depiction of a mental battle, and the setting, go play Dragon Age Origins. That's the Veil. Now, the Veil goes into other areas to suit that game, but in its basic structure, that's the Veil. So I find the similarities absolutely astounding. And that Maverlyn wrote this almost 2 decades prior to BioWare's game that became such a beloved fantasy game that stands the test of time even to this day. So very well done job by Maverlyn, and great story, and just so much to take in. So I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. And that's my video for today. If you like this video, leave a like, a subscribe, and a share. I'm trying to grow my channel, and a like, a subscribe, and a share does me wonders, and I do appreciate it. Takes 1 second to subscribe, costs you absolutely nothing, helps me immensely. Just hit the subscribe button on the bottom of the screen. If you're watching this on Rumble, please follow my channel. Always feel free to leave a comment. I encourage everybody to leave a comment. Not only does it get us interacting, it really does help me with the YouTube algorithm and getting more eyes on my videos. And if you have any stories that you would like me to read, please send them my way. You can get a hold of me through Rumble. You can get a hold of me through Calfurer on Facebook, or obviously through the YouTube channel, the Onion Buns. So please send me a message with your stories, and I will eventually get around to them once I've finished with all of Maverlyn's writings. And as always, pew, 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 and shit. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.